with Joni Kamlet. I'm so proud and honored to have Joni amongst us today to give us the knowledge and the education to move forward in this medicinal mushroom path that we are on. So Joni Kamlet is a registered veterinarian technician and a certified canine rehabilitation assistant through the Canine Rehabilitation Institute. She also has her certification in applied clinical nutrition for humans through Life Chiropractic College. For over a decade, Joni has worked in the supplement industry with Standard Process, MediHerb for 10 years as their Northern California veterinarian rep, and now the Real Mushrooms, teaching veterinarians and pet parents about holistic options. Her experience encompasses nutrition, canine rehabilitation, Western herbal medicine, functional medicine, laser therapy, energy medicine, and her favorite modality, therapeutic mushrooms. She is also learning and loving building community through education. And this is why we have you here today. Welcome, Joni. I would love to hear, and I think everybody would love to hear your journey and how you got to this stage in your life.
Yeah, sure. And thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Donna. It's really good to be here. And yeah, and I love, I love talking about mushrooms. I love talking about holistic medicine. And, my path, often I'm on these, me and Dr. Rob Silver are doing a lot of these type interviews together, and his path is very, very different than mine. Lots of schooling and this and that. My path is not that. I was actually I was a bartender through my 20s and 30s, and not living a good lifestyle at all. Knew nothing about anything holistic or alternative or whatever. And at 36 years of age, I'm 61 now, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And so, they removed a 18 centimeter cyst, like the size of a 6-month fetus, that was encapsulating my right ovary. And I had said before the surgery, I said, unless you're sure it's cancer, don't take anything else. And at first they thought it was not cancerous. So they closed me back up, and it turned out it was cancer. They wanted to go back in and stage figure out what stage of cancer. So that would have required opening me back up and taking tissue from my diaphragm all the way down to my bowel. The oncologist was recommending chemotherapy and radiation. And honestly, I knew nothing about anything alternative, but something inside me just said no. I just said no. And and I had to sign a release with the doctor, that I was basically refusing, refusing the advice. I was going against, medical advice, AMA, I guess. And so I had to start learning what was I going to do? I didn't know what I was going to do next. And that is how I kind of launched on this crash course. And, what I didn't know at the time was integrative medicine. I was just looking at trying to do anything other than something inside me, just said that was not the path for me, going the chemo and radiation route, and more so, hysterectomy, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So I was lucky enough to be living in a community, a spiritual community, where people were doing Reiki, and there were acupuncturists and chiropractors and people practicing Chinese medicine, et cetera. And the whole community started working on me. And so I did a macrobiotic diet. I was a raw food vegan. I did Ayurveda, like you name it, I did it. And at the same time, concurrent with my cancer, my dog at the same time was diagnosed with mammary cancer. And so I started kind of trying some of the same things with her. And back then, this was 1996, 1997. You couldn't go to the store and buy raw food, like you can now, like raw, pre-made raw pet food. And there were not very many integrative veterinarians. But I started Sojourners Farms, was one of the very first was the name of a pet food that you added raw food to this, this mixture. And I got my dog, her name was Waffles, started on a raw food diet back then, and found a veterinary homeopath. And anyway, here I am, it's 26 years later, something like that. And I'm still here, still have my other ovary, my dog, Waffles, she was 9 years old when she was diagnosed with the mammary cancer, and she lived another 9 years. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and so that was my introduction. It was, like I said, a crash course. And interestingly, with Waffles, like she had this mammary tumor, and then a couple of them, sometimes they would like start to grow or flare up. And I was mainly doing, I was working with a classical homeopath and also raw feeding. And so we would try a different remedy, et cetera, and it would settle down. And then, one day it just woke up, and within 2 weeks, she was gone. I mean, it was just when it went, but I mean, I got 9 years with her, an additional 9 years. And so when I saw what was happening with the mammary cancer, I didn't do anything more. I was like, okay, like I just wanted to give her the best quality of life at that point. And honestly, I wish I didn't know anything about medicinal mushrooms back then. I wish I did, or I would have certainly been using them. But yeah, that's how I kind of got into this, and I ended up moving to California, and because of my experience and my dog's experience, I kind of felt like I had a second lease on life, and I always wanted to work with animals. So I went back to school to become a registered veterinary technician. I was like 40 when I went back to school, and with specifically to go into integrative veterinary medicine. So, I was in class in RVT school, and the Hill Science Diet people would come to talk to us. And I was their worst nightmare, because I was asking questions about the ingredients. Like, they didn't expect that there would be somebody in this class of, students, registered veterinary technicians, that kind of understood a little bit about what ethoxyquin was, for instance, which is used in dry pet food and actually canned food to stabilize it, but it's also used in the rubber of tires and as a carcinogen.
Did you say ethoxyquin?
It's called ethoxyquin.
Ethoxyquin. Okay.
Ethoxyquin, yeah. And so back then, that was in all the food. It's still in a lot of pet food. It's been taken out of some, but at the time, Science Diet, they even had it in their cancer diets, and it was cancer causing. So anyway, that's so that's kind of my long-winded answer to how I got here.
Right.
And and it's really what has fueled my passion. And so I was in hands-on veterinary medicine, got into canine rehabilitation, and then started working for Standard Process, and got out of the hands-on and more into the education, about whole food nutrition and glandular therapy, et cetera, and now mushrooms. Yeah.
Right. Well, you've covered a lot of ground there in your young life. I mean, even energy medicine and stuff, and laser therapy. I mean, functional medicine. I mean, I'm just blown away by all your knowledge. I'd have to have you on again for maybe another interview on some of these other modalities that you've got experience with, maybe. I don't know, but anyways, so this has been a life journey for you, and I always feel that that our higher powers, when we're on the right path, they just kind of give us what we need and feed us, what we need. So you living where you lived and being encompassed with all those people that had that knowledge,
right?
You were just at the right place at the right time.
I totally was. And now, I say, like, honestly, the cancer might sound weird, but it's kind of the best thing that ever happened to me, because the path that I was on, I mean, I was not conscious of what I was putting in my body, I was not a health conscious person at all. And it completely changed well, it changed everything about my life, including the career that I ended up, the direction career-wise I ended up going in. So, yeah, and, probably because I was never staged, there's a very good possibility that, that when they removed that giant cyst, that was curative. I mean, there's no way of ever knowing. I can't, I can't say with any certainty that anything that I did after that, was curative or support. I can.
Well, I mean, what you did was support your immune system, and you just became stronger mentally and physically and internally and everything. So even if there was anything, your immune system was able to deal with it naturally.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I always say that, if you give the body what it needs, the body's got this wonderful ability to make all these positive changes if you just give it the tools.
Yes.
Just need to give it the tools.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and get out of the way and remove the obstacles to cure, which it's very important with, and those obstacles can be toxins, which are everywhere,
Right.
If your dog is laying, on the carpet, unless you have some sort of special organic carpet, they're breathing in whatever was sprayed on that carpet to protect, like any kind of fire retardant or anything like that, if you're out walking your dog, they're, think of where they're right at exhaust level, like we're up higher, but they're right down at the level where the car exhaust is coming in, all of these things are basically contributing to our pets' health or lack of, the challenges that we have to face. So we've got to be much more careful about making sure that we're just getting the best nutrition in our pets, that we're giving, functional foods like mushrooms that can give the body a really, and this is for us too, the body a really help kind of make sure that our immune systems are functioning at their optimal level.
Right. Right. Now, are mushrooms a whole food?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like, mushrooms, they're not an herb. Mushrooms are not. They have their own kingdom. The kingdom fungi. It's their own. They're not plants. They're not animals. Mushrooms actually have more in common. Their DNA has more in common with animals, with humans, than it does with plants. Which I find fascinating. And so, and so we really are, if you think about, like, I mean, the fungal kingdom, the yeasts and bacteria, like there's so much more, molds, everything is encompassed in that. And so if you think of what's in our gut, like we're in a kind of in a roundabout way, we're kind of made of fungus, like we're part of us is fungal.
And we're made up of a large amount of bacteria too.
Yes,
so exactly. That all works together.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. So what is your favorite mushroom?
So if you were to ask Dr. Rob Silver what his favorite mushroom is, he would say reishi mushroom. And my favorite mushroom is lion's mane mushroom. And I am absolutely obsessed with lion's mane mushroom, which I know, Donna, you're familiar with lion's mane. It looks almost like a brain. It's a white mushroom. It can be kind of round, and sometimes it has little what look like little teeth, but I think it looks like a brain, and which kind of fits. I don't know if you're familiar with the doctrine of signatures, but the doctrine of signatures says that often plants will resemble what they're made to support in the body. So we often find that, and so, not coincidentally, lion's mane, which looks like a brain, is very supportive to the brain and neurologic function. And the interesting thing I find about lion's mane, it's our most popular mushroom. It's probably right now, it's the best-selling mushroom, probably getting the most kind of press out there if you look into, not necessarily in veterinary, but on the human side of things. But it's a relatively new mushroom. It's a mushroom that was extremely rare in the wild. So going out and like looking for lion's mane mushroom, it's hard to find. But it's only been in the past maybe decade or less that they have learned how to cultivate it on a large scale. And so along with the cultivation has come the popularity. And I don't think lion's mane is being used in veterinary as much as it should be. I think in a couple of years, lion's mane is going to be up there, right up there with turkey tail, which is in veterinary, most people, when they're using mushrooms, are using turkey tail mushroom for their pets. I think lion's mane is going to be up there with turkey tail because I say the biggest thing that the lion's mane does is what I've seen with animals is the benefits in cognitive function, dog dementia, the canine cognitive dysfunction or doggy dementia. It's epidemic. I mean, it is epidemic, and it's hard to know whether it's always been around and we're just more aware of it, or more people are talking about it, or if there's for some reason, and who knows, and I mean, I'm just hypothesizing, is it related to toxins? Is it related to the food we're feeding along with cancer, and metabolic syndromes? Is it just that animals are, and we have more pets, so is that the reason we're hearing about it more? But when I started 20 years ago in the vet hospital, I never even heard that term used. Like canine cognitive dysfunction was just those were not cases that we saw. And now it's one of the biggest questions I get from veterinarians and from pet parents is, do you have anything that can help my dog who's having cognitive issues? And lion's mane, it's pretty amazing, and how well it can help these dogs with cognitive function, and it can do it pretty rapidly. Most with mushrooms, because they're functional foods, it usually takes, you're not going to see immediate results. Mushrooms should be taken over a long period of time, and they kind of support, they're immunomodulating, they kind of help support and balance the immune system. So, mushrooms are generally not so great for an acute case, with the exception of lion's mane, which I always like to under promise and over deliver. So I don't tell most pet parents this, that like, you might see a result like within a week or two. I say, give it a few months. But over and over again, I hear from them saying like, we're already seeing results.
I saw results in my young dog probably 2 to 3 weeks in.
Really? With lion's mane or with
my blend, which is a good part of it, is lion's mane, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And some of the feedback, these dogs that with dementia, they can sundown just like people with dementia or Alzheimer's. Later in the day, they have a harder time. Same with dogs. They might want to go inside and then outside and inside and outside, or they might not be able to, not making eye contact with the owners, vocalizing, inappropriate urination, just not acting themselves, not being able to settle. These are all some of the things that can happen. And the feedback that I got, because to be honest, with the lion's mane, it also, there's some clinical studies with the mycelium that shows that it can support the regeneration of the myelin sheath, which is the sheath that covers the spinal cord. And so with my background in rehabilitation, when I heard this, I was very excited about using lion's mane for dogs with degenerative myelopathy, which is a horrible, fatal disease that happens to German shepherds, boxers, corgis. It can also happen with pit bulls. It can happen with any dog, but it's more prominent in these breeds. And they slowly lose the use. They start by kind of knuckling on their back feet. Like if you see, instead of stepping with their foot down, they kind of knuckle. That's the beginning. And they eventually lose urinary and fecal continence. And it slowly kind of moves up to where it affects their breathing, et cetera. And when I heard that lion's mane can support the myelin sheath, I was working with a group of veterinarians in Northern California, and I sent sample bottles of lion's mane, of a lion's mane product I was working with, to all of them, saying, oh my gosh, give this to your DM dogs and let me know how it goes, because I wanted to see if it was going to be helpful. And what happens with DM is a dog can do well one day and then backslide. So the results with the DM were mixed, but almost all of them were saying, it's okay for the DM, but oh my gosh, my cognitive cases, I love this stuff. Like the pet parents were reporting that their dog's cognitive function was getting better. And so that was the big wake up call. And so I did a study with these vets, and they were reporting dogs were picking up toys to initiate play. They were making direct eye contact. They could find the dog door to go in and out, various things like that. So hold on one second. Oh, my flatmate's coming in. He's going in the other door. What a nice person.
Oh.
But yeah, so we had a whole list of experiences that veterinarians were hearing from their pet parents, and that these reactions were not subtle, that they were very, very specific. And, we call these the ADLs, or the activities of daily living, there was a benefit to these activities, like there were some beneficial changes that were happening with these dogs. And so the company that I was working for, this was before Real Mushrooms, we actually, based on this feedback, we made a veterinary line. We made this product into a veterinary formula because so many pets were starting to use it. And then based on, that's kind of what got me so excited about mushrooms. I mean, that was really my wake up call for what was so exciting about mushrooms. Hey there. But anyway, yeah, so that was kind of my entry. I had started working in product development for this other company. We were using mushrooms. And again, like when I saw these dogs respond so well to the lion's mane, it got me thinking, like, my goodness, what else can mushrooms do?
Right.
Like, and that's what took me down the rabbit hole and led me to what I'm doing today.
Nice.
It was just like, I knew nothing about mushrooms. And then suddenly it was like, my gosh, where have I been? Like, this is incredible. I've never seen dogs just, and I mean, I've worked in being in the supplement industry for over a decade for a really good, for Standard Process and MediHerb, worked with a lot of dogs with canine cognitive dysfunction and never, ever saw that kind of response.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
So that's why lion's mane is I call it my gateway mushroom.
Yes, because it connected you with Namex.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Our company that I worked for was using the Namex supplements. And it was actually Jeff Chilton, who is the founder of Namex and the father of Sky Chilton, who is the CEO of Real Mushrooms. He was doing a webinar for the company I was working for on quality control, et cetera. And while we were setting up for the webinar, he just mentioned in passing that his son Sky was creating a veterinary line. And that's how I found out.
And you were like, ding, ding, pick me, pick me.
It was kind of like a ding, ding. Well, I was like, I was in the Zoom with my boss and Jeff Chilton. So I didn't like exactly say pick me, but it kind of got in my head. Yeah. And then I ended up reaching out to Sky, excuse me. And Sky told me that Dr. Rob Silver was also involved. And I knew Dr. Silver, we'd actually been competitors for decades because we worked for competing supplement companies.
Okay.
had, he was with RX Vitamins and I was with Standard Process. But I mean, I had mad respect for him. He's brilliant. So I guess Sky asked Dr. Silver, hey, do you know this Joni person? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, hire her. And I said to Sky, oh my gosh, I can't believe Dr. Silver is working for Real Mushrooms. Hire me.
Right.
That's how I ended up here. Yeah. And all worked out.
No, that's an amazing journey. And when I heard that Dr. Robert Silver is part of Namex, I was like, and I was so elated because I have tremendous amount of respect and admiration for the man. And he is such an easygoing, down to earth, person. And he's just easy to talk to. And he's very passionate about what he does. And he takes it very seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. One of the things about Dr. Silver, and it's been really good for me, is he's very evidence-based, in holistic or integrative medicine. And I'm guilty of this too. We can get a little woo-woo, we can really, and there's nothing wrong with woo-woo, but when you're introducing something new into the veterinary community, you need to have science to back it up, or into any, in the human community, it's important to have evidence when introducing things, and and then you can go a little woo-woo, once the evidence is there. But Dr. Silver is always like, Joni, where's the evidence? Show me the evidence. He's very he reads everything. He reads every clinical study, cover to cover, and and it's wonderful because I came from a background where we there's so many anecdotal studies out there. There's so many anecdotal stories out there, people, and there's nothing, anecdotal is great when people share with you what, the benefit that their pet got, or, they had cancer and it's gone in remission, or this or that. These are all, it's very valuable. And we need to understand why it went into remission. Like, what is it in that reishi mushroom that might have stimulated the natural killer cells, or this or that, to help, support the cancer going into remission. And sadly, there's very few veterinary studies right now. There's like 2, maybe 3 mushroom studies, in veterinary medicine, period. Right. That's for all mushrooms. Right. So we're very limited in that evidence. So often we have to go to human studies, or rat studies, or
that's what I've seen is a lot of the rat mice studies.
And one of the things I'm excited about, Dr. Silver is very, very motivated to do clinical studies. So we're hoping to do the first study we're hoping to do is a safety study with turkey tail, because turkey tail is a mushroom that's used a lot for dogs with cancer. And it's because there was one of the clinical studies in veterinary was around dogs with hemangiosarcoma, which is a very aggressive cancer that usually manifests in the spleen. And these dogs often have 1 to 3 months to live. And it was at the University of Pennsylvania. They did a study with an extract from the mycelium of turkey tail. And it wasn't a big study. It only involved 15 dogs. But the results of that study, the dogs that were on the highest dose of this mycelium-based turkey tail extract, their survival time was significantly greater than the dogs that were not on it. So that study came out. That study came out in 2012, and it's what kind of generated all of this interest in turkey tail in veterinary. And it's why, if somebody has a pet with cancer and they want to use alternative medicine or mushrooms, very often that's the direction they're going. And I totally think that they should. Go ahead.
Can you explain to us the difference between what mycelium extractions are and the fruiting body?
Sure, absolutely. So A fungi, I should say, a fungi in the form of a mushroom has three parts. There is the part that's up above the ground, the part that you see that's got that kind of, the dome shape. That is a mushroom. And often that's also called the fruiting body because it's the part that kind of comes up and blooms above ground, I guess you could call that. But that is the only part of the fungi that is an actual mushroom. The other part of the fungi is the spore, which is the reproductive part of the mushroom that is kind of released either through the gills. Different mushrooms, depending on what type they are, release the spores in a different way. And then there's the underground structure of the fungi, which is called the mycelium, and it's the part that you don't see. And the closest it could be described would be like the root structure of a plant, although it really has nothing to do with that. But the mycelium is the underground part. That's not a mycelium is not a mushroom. Mushroom is just the part on top. And mycelium, there are a lot of benefits to mycelium. The only issue with mycelium is that when you're cultivating it, for instance, to put into supplements, when you're growing mushrooms on a large scale or growing for supplements, you grow them in what's called a substrate. And it's kind of like, it can be like a block of like rice or oats. Sometimes it's grown on wood, but usually like rice or oats. And they inject the spores, the reproductive part, into that block. And then the mycelium starts to grow, and eventually the mushroom pops up. Mushrooms are very hard to grow. They're very particular. They need a certain, they need certain particular light. They need particular temperature. Every mushroom is different. They need a lot of space to grow, and they take a very long time to grow. So the mycelium is very easy. It grows quickly. And so a lot of mushroom companies, unfortunately, and I shouldn't say, I understand there's financial reasons, et cetera. They don't wait for the mushroom to pop up and just use the mushroom. They work with the mycelium, and that would be fine, except there's no way to separate that mycelium from the block that it's growing in. Right. And so what they do is they basically just grind up that block of oats or rice or whatever it is that includes the mycelium, and they put it into a supplement. And so we call that mycelium on grain or MOG. And if you look at a mushroom product, you can see, often in the other ingredients, it will list the rice or or whatever grain that it was grown in. And I'm not saying that those products are bad. I will leave it up to, I'll leave it up to the viewer to decide whether they want an actual mushroom that's above the ground, that's all mushroom, or whether they want a combination of the mycelium, which is beneficial, combined with grain, which, if you're on a grain-free diet, or if you have a dog or, cat with cancer and you're trying to avoid grain, right, it could potentially be problematic. My issue with it is like, why don't you just say what it is? Like, they're calling them mushrooms. Right. Their supplements are on the market saying this is a mushroom product, and it's not a mushroom. Like, say that it's a mycelium on grain product, and then explain all the benefits. Some companies are marketing that the grain is fermented and that there's some sort of process that happens when the mycelium and the grain combines that has a beneficial outcome. Great. Describe that in your marketing and your packaging. Don't call it a mushroom. This is why we call ourselves Real Mushrooms, because we only use the mushroom. One of the things, like Jeff Chilton is he's really trying to get us away from saying fruiting body, because it's just a mushroom, but so many, I do the same thing. I use the term fruiting body to describe,
The
what is
top part.
actually just a mushroom. So anyway, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
But another way to look at the mycelium versus the mushroom or fruiting body, like if you had a tree, an apple tree, the apple would compare to the mushroom, so you would eat that apple would have benefits. Well, the tree stump and the roots of the tree would not have the same benefits
Right.
that the
Right.
apple would. And
Yeah.
so again, it's just different parts of an organism. And some of the largest companies in the marketplace are mycelium on grain. Any mushroom that is grown in the US, made in the US, is a mycelium on grain product.
Okay.
Because,
well, that's good to know. Because this is all about educating people so that they can make an informed decision.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would assume that the prices of those, grown on grain, the prices would be, in lower, I would assume, because the cost is less, less for them, but it's hard to say. Right?
Yeah, I will. Yeah,
I don't know.
I'll let y'all do your own. You would think that, but
Yeah,
in many cases,
but I mean, just giving people the knowledge of this, then they can go out there and do their own research and make up their own minds what's best for them and their pets, right?
Exactly. And I will say that because I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, and there's a lot of people that are very, very attached to their product that is a mycelium on grain product, and they have their own anecdotal stories of all the benefits that their pet is receiving being on that. And I always say, stay on it. Don't change. Like if it's working for you,
it's working. Yeah.
I'm not in any way trying to bash these companies. I just want to educate, this is the difference between, we do it one way. These other companies do it a different way. If you go and they have their own education, on why they're doing that. And there's a lot of really compelling information too. So I always tell people, like, do your homework with any supplement, any food you're giving, research your better, like, everything, you have to do your due diligence, and then make the choice that's most comfortable for you. In my case, that's why I ended up going with the real mushrooms. Is I really loved their transparency. I love that they only use fruiting body, no mycelium at all. And the products are organic, and I know where they're coming from. So right. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I love them too, is because they fit in with who I am and how I want to be as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm very, very blessed to be part of the team.
Yeah. And Donna, if I might kind of put you on the spot for a minute, I'm curious as to how you found your way to mushrooms. And I know that you've been working with mushrooms yourself. So
yes. My journey kind of happened organically. It was a client that, a year ago I was, working with, and then I asked him what he was doing. And one of the things he says, I want to get into growing, some medicinal mushrooms. And I was like, oh, I said, I'm interested in that. I said, if you get into doing it, if you want somebody to help you with the pet line, let me know. So several months ago, he contacted me. He says, okay, we're ready to launch our medicinal mushrooms. So I said, cool. And I started asking him questions. What are you growing it on? Are you using a fruiting body? What extraction method are you using? What is the ratio? And he was like, hold on a minute. So then he came back to me and he goes, you know what? We want to do this right. And he says, we need to order in the right equipment to do it. I said, okay, no problem. A couple of weeks later, he says, you know what? We're connecting with another company that we're going to be using their mushrooms. Would you like to join us? And I was like, sure. What's this company? And he was like, Namix. And I was like, and I hadn't heard of Namix then.
Okay.
So I looked them up and I researched it, and I was like, oh, wow, this is the company, right?
Yeah.
So it was literally gifted to me.
Yeah.
And then the blend that I put into my blend is the 4 mushrooms that these gentlemen had picked to do, that they were wanting to do themselves. And so I connected, I just made a blend, and I was connected with Dr. Robert Silver, and I said, Dr. Silver, how do I know that the blend that I want to make is going to be palatable for animals? He said, well, just order in some and make your blend and just taste test it. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
So I ordered in some and made the blend I was thinking of doing, and I tested it on my animals, and there was a no-go. It was a no-go, and I was like, okay, back to the drawing board. And I did a little bit of muscle testing. Are you familiar with muscle?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I did a little muscle testing to kind of help me, guide me on the percentages of the blend. And I created, did a few others. And I finally found one that even my cats love. So I can sprinkle it on all their foods and nobody will turn up their noses, not even the cat. So I came up with this blend. I thought, okay, this is the blend I'm going to do. And that's how I put it together. And then I just, connected with somebody in Namex out in Ontario. And it was before you guys had launched your pet line. And he was like, okay, we're going to be launching a pet line. We're working with a veterinarian in Colorado, and he's putting together a blend for us. And he said, but I can't tell you who it is yet. And I said, oh, is it Dr. Robert Silver? And it got really quiet. And he goes, how'd you know that? I says, well, I get his emails all the time, and his last 2 emails have been on mushrooms. And he's the only vet that I know that's into this kind of stuff that's in Colorado.
Yeah.
So I just put 2 and 2 together.
Oh, good for you. And your blend, Joni, so you said it has lion's mane in it. What else does it have in it?
So it's lion's mane, turkey tail, reishi, and cordyceps.
Nice. That's a very nice blend.
Yeah, it's a nice blend. And I know that the lion's mane and the reishi, if I remember correctly, they work synergistically together and they can help the brain together.
Yeah, they're both very good for calming.
Yeah.
The lion, actually we have the lion's mane and the reishi and the real mushrooms, relax chews. That's the combo that Dr. Silver picked. So it's great for the brain, reishi, they call it the mushroom of immortality. Reishi is really, honestly, I was, there's an Australian, gosh, I can't remember his name. There's an Australian mushroom guy that I follow on Instagram. Gosh, what is his company called? Like Super Feast or something, but he was describing, he said, reishi is like a warm grounding hug from your mom.
Oh, I like that analogy.
He says it's just very calming, and traditionally, like it's been used for thousands of years by like Zen Buddhist monks for to support meditation. So it can kind of just help take the edge off, and then you have the cordyceps in there, which is excellent as an adaptogen. So it's great for energy. But not like it won't amp you up. It's, you got that calming, but you've also got that kind of motivation, energy that comes from cordyceps. And it's, cordyceps is also, it has an affinity for the lungs and the kidneys. And then what was the other? Oh, and turkey tail, of course, which is wonderful. It's got, immune enhancing. All of the mushrooms in your blend, actually all mushrooms in general, are anti-inflammatory. But the turkey tail is also antiviral, as is reishi. So that's a really nice calming, immune supporting blend that you've put together.
Yeah. And it's so far the clients that have used it, it's been palatable for their animals too. So that is really important to make it palatable. And
the reishi is really bitter. So
yes.
You have
to bring that level kind of down there but the fact that I learned from one of your roundtables that, some of the mushrooms work synergistically together and they become more powerful when they're put together. That made me feel better about my combination.
Yes. Dr. Barbara Fougere, who's a very well-known veterinarian, she actually she wrote, oh, let's see if I can pull it. My very favorite book. She wrote this giant book called Veterinary Herbal Medicine.
Oh,
It's about, gosh, 600 pages or something. 685 pages is where the
wow.
index starts. Her and Susan Wynn wrote this. This is the Bible for veterinarians. And so it was Dr. Barbara Fougere, who was on our roundtable, who has been using a lot of mushrooms. And she swears by the synergy of mushrooms together. And so if Dr. Fougere said, like, she's really, she knows her stuff, that's for sure. And I find that too with the mushrooms. I always try to use them in combination. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I enjoyed that roundtable with her. It was very, very informative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
So, I think we've covered oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. The beta-glucans.
Yes.
Can you explain beta-glucans and how they support the immune
I can
system?
try.
A little bit.
I can try. I stumble a little bit on describing it in the way that Dr. Silver would, in a very scientific way. But what I will, so I'm gonna describe it more in a way that I have been able to understand it. You know,
That would be perfect.
yeah, beta glucans are they kind of help make up along with chitin, they kind of hold the mushroom together, I guess you could say. And beta glucans are like, how to describe it? They're in all mushrooms, and they help set up a communication kind of between, I would say, between the body and the natural world. If you think about mushrooms going back to millennia and fungus, like they're through the ice age, et cetera, it was the organisms that were able to learn how to overcome fungus and molds, et cetera, that survived. Okay, that's one, that's one thing to remember. And there's also the fact that there are poisonous mushrooms out there. Our body's DNA remembers that, and that actually works to benefit us. And the language of this communication kind of informing our body that of the potential threat that mushrooms can carry the communication comes through these beta glucans. And how that can work in a beneficial way is because our bodies and our DNA, human and animal, has that memory that that a mushroom could be a threat. It wakes up the body, it wakes up the immune system and says, okay, I'm not a threat, but I could be. So you need to be vigilant. You need to be on alert. You know, you need to be ready should there be a problem here. And really, and these beta glucans and the mushrooms, it's very hard for our bodies to digest. So they kind of stay in the gut, and they're sending messages, and different mushrooms have different organ targets. Like I described the cordyceps, like it's not just the beta glucans, there's triterpenes, there's all kinds of other things in the mushrooms that are sending these messages, but it's kind of, the beta glucans are almost like the internet that is like sending these messages saying, be alert. And more message will go to, for instance, the kidneys or the lungs with the cordyceps. And that's kind of how the beta glucans, what is such a benefit. And beta glucans are not just in mushrooms, they're in oats, they're in other kinds of foods, but they're in a very, very high volume in mushrooms. And a lot of us are avoiding, grains, et cetera, as well. But the way I look at the beta glucans is like, or when we ingest mushrooms or an animal ingests, I kind of, I liken it to like the soldiers in the army that are asleep and reveille plays, the reveille horn plays, and the soldiers get up out of bed, and they make their beds, and they make sure they got those hospital corners, and then they they get into their uniforms and their shoes are shined, and then they line up and they're ready to go. That's kind of when the mushrooms and the body receives these beta glucans, it's the reveille plays. And so our immune system, all through the body, and it's activated in the gut through the gut and then the lymphoid tissue, et cetera. It's kind of sending out these messages saying, through the beta glucan saying, be alert. And so the soldiers are lined up, and so there's no emergency, but they are ready should there be anything. Right. And, okay, do we need more reinforcements here or there or whatever? And when mushrooms are ingested on a regular basis, that body receives that potential danger signal, which activates that alert system in the body. And the beta glucans play a very large part in doing that. So I hope that helps, because honestly, beta glucans are the science of them has been very hard for me to understand. I read it over and over and over again, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need Rob.
I'm glad. Yeah, thank you, because I was not having, I was having a hard time understanding. So what you explained made more sense to me.
That's why I try to, what I find, because I do a lot of this educating to veterinarians and pet parents. And when I try to I love listening to Dr. Silver describe it. It makes sense, but then to try to repeat it, I can't do it. So I've been trying to explain it in a way that in kind of a very basic way that I can understand, or that I can help people understand. Yeah. But and that's the beauty of mushrooms, and all mushrooms have this ability. And and so our body is this vigilance that it creates in us, in our immune system, is I can say personally, from now being on mushrooms regularly for going on 3 years now, I feel a vitality, like a physical vitality, mental, my mental vitality and stability, emotional, even spiritual. Like you just feel.
You feel the difference. May I ask what
mushrooms? Yeah.
What lens you're using?
Excuse me?
Which lens are you using for yourself?
Oh gosh, it depends on the day. Okay. Right now, I'm drinking mushroom tea right now, and it has reishi, tremella, chaga, and what else did I put in this morning? Reishi and some cordyceps. But every morning I mix it up. I do something different. Right now, I'm kind of obsessed with tremella, which is excellent for the skin.
Yeah,
and
your
it's
skin
also,
is beautiful.
Thank you. It makes you, you can't stop touching your face. The tremella draws, it kind of draws moisture to the skin, but it's also really great for the brain. It's very similar to lion's mane in how it supports neurologic function. But what I've found since being on tremella, I call it the mushroom of optimism, because I feel very lighthearted. Like my mood is very light when I take tremella. So, and one of my very sciencey chiropractor friends said, "Oh yeah, it's the amygdala." Like he had a whole scientific explanation for why it did that, and there was a clinical study on it. I'm like, I don't know. I just feel, I just feel better, But I also, I take a lot of lion's mane, and it really varies. I mix it up pretty much every day. If I was starting to feel like I was coming down with something, I would probably increase the reishi and the turkey tail. But right now I'm just kind of mixing my way through them, and I cook. Well, I need to. Since I just moved 3 weeks ago, I haven't been doing much cooking, but when I was in Berkeley, I was cooking with mushrooms 2 to 3 times a week. There was a wonderful grocery store where you can go and buy, every kind of mushroom imaginable, some of it wild foraged. So I was cooking with shiitake and maitake and lion's mane and chanterelles and you name it. I just haven't, I need to get back on my cooking with mushrooms game.
And even from what I understand from the roundtables, even cooking with the ones that you buy at the grocery store, once you heat them and cook them, there's benefits to that too.
Totally. Yeah. Even the button mushroom, the very simple, humble button mushroom is very, it's one of the highest in ergothioneine, which is an antioxidant. It's anti-aging. It has all kinds of amazing health benefits, and it's in very high percentages in the button mushroom and also in the portobello mushroom. So it's important to cook the mushrooms because the cooking is what releases the medicine.
Right.
But yeah, it doesn't really matter what kind of mushrooms, like they're all going to be beneficial.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, Joni, this has been an amazing, informative interview. I appreciate all your knowledge, all your experience, your passion, your journey. I think the journey, anybody that's passionate about something, it's a personal journey that has always led them there, and it just drives them all the more, rather than the difference between people like yourself and people that are, oh, I see that the value of that is going up, I should get into that because it's going to make more money on that, right?
Like Bitcoin.
Like Bitcoin, right? So I mean, it's completely, the passion is completely different. So I so appreciate your passion and your journey and your
and I yours, Donna. Look at you getting, it's wonderful the work that you're doing. And
thank you.
Thank
you. And I appreciate, the company sharing the knowledge and including all of us in the sharing. And it's a rabbit hole that I'm going to stay in for a long time.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah. Now I was wondering, Ty, do you have any questions?
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
I was just saying millions of questions, but I know some of the stuff, and I've made lots of notes for what I'm going to look up to learn more about. I was very curious about the tea that you're drinking and the teas that you make. Are these, do you have like powdered versions of the mushrooms? Okay, yes. And do they dissolve easily in water?
Yes and no. What I do is you get a frother, you just hot water, put the powders in, and then I froth it. And then like this cup of mushroom tea, like the mushroom particles will kind of go to the bottom. You'll drink, there's enough in the hot water, but then the sediment will be on the bottom. I just keep adding water through the day until there's no more sediment. So I start with a fair amount of mushroom powder, and I just keep blending it and adding hot water until I get through all of it. I don't know, is that how you do it too, Donna? Yeah,
I've got the tea bag in here. I put the mushrooms in there, and as it settles, I add more hot water. I stir it up again, and and I make sure I drink that every last drop because I know there's sediment at the bottom.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I don't have a tea bag. I just do mushrooms. Yeah, it's just, I actually don't like the taste of tea.
Oh, so yours is just straight mushrooms. Okay.
Straight mushrooms. Yeah.
Well, I always use the green tea because it's a major antioxidant, and then I just blend mushrooms in with it.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, I should be doing green tea.
I might have been out of the room for a minute during the beginning because I had notes about waffles and the beginning of your journey when you were describing. And I don't really think I caught what mushroom you really started with for her mammary gland cancer.
Actually, what I said, I didn't know anything about mushrooms back then.
Oh, I see. That's where you got started.
Yeah, I treated her primarily with homeopathy, and I worked with the classical homeopath. And with classical homeopathy, they don't like using anything other than the remedy. Although this veterinarian was a big proponent of raw feeding, so I was raw feeding and doing homeopathy with her, and that was pretty much it. And then after she passed that I went, I went back to school and, became an RVT. And then I was really learning more and more about herbs and stuff like that. But my mushroom journey only started 3 years ago. So
in that book, the veterinary guide, herbal guide, I think you said it was.
Veterinary herbal, the one I held up.
Yeah. Does that include mushrooms in it?
It does. Yeah. She, some actually good put. Yeah. Dr. Frugier's gotten more into mushrooms more recently. But let me just see here. Mushrooms, mycology. There's just one page on it.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's really not much. This is mainly this is herbal medicine, and mushrooms aren't herbs. But
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if Dr. Frugier writes a book on mushrooms. Yeah, I hope that would be great. Yeah.
Joni, do you have a favorite book on mushrooms that you would recommend?
I really like Christopher Hobbs has written a few books. Medicinal Mushrooms, The Essential Guide is a good one. He also has a new one that I don't have yet. And if you really want to learn about mushrooms, my friend, an herbalist, a medical herbalist named Lee Carroll is putting together a mushroom online course.
Oh, nice.
With certification. Yeah. And he's who I've learned 99% of my mushroom, about mushrooms from. And so hopefully that's going to be coming out in the fall, and we're going to be talking about it on the round table, et
On the
cetera.
round tables. Good. I'll look forward to it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
Thanks for those answers.
sure. Of course. My pleasure. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, well, I feel quite honored to be a part of this discussion. Listening, I feel like I've got the glass to the wall.
There you go. There you go.
All right. All right. Well, are you done with the questions, Ty?
Oh, I could go on and on, but you're still recording, and
I'm actually, I should probably get
Oh, yes. There was just, okay.
move on here. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again, Joni.
That was my pleasure.
It was, an honor having you, and I'm very blessed to be part of, the whole mushroom rabbit hole team. And we'll look forward to maybe having you again in the future.
I'd be happy to.
Okay. Enjoy your day.
good luck in Buckingham.
Thank you, and good luck on Buckingham Road.
Right. Good luck.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.